What's the real reason your Tesla trim is discolored? We found the root cause and we got the permanent solution. Let's get after it. So actually a few friends of the channel alerted us to this issue. We actually have one of their cars here today and said they got some discolored trim. Looks a little bit rainbowy or a little bit bluish. And then doing some research, we found quite a few videos that were calling out this same exact issue on people's trim. And there was quite a few also suggestions on how to take care of that. We want to do a little bit of research because it sounds a little bit strange for trim to be turning that kind of color, that kind of discoloration. So we wanted to see it firsthand. And we have some very interesting discoveries to share with you guys, and also have the solution on how to take care of this. If you look really closely, they were spot on in describing this bluish rainbowing effect. And if you guys have seen our videos, you know when we're doing like ceramic coatings, you wait for that rainbow effect. So it kind of looks like there's like an oil film on top of this trim. And people were just curious, how do you get it off? And there were some suggestions about you gotta polish it, or you gotta use a special solvent or a restorer, things like that. One of the more popular tips and tricks that we found was using the all-purpose WD-40 penetrant lubricant product to fix this solution. So we wanted to test that out and then share the results on how we believe we can fix this permanently for you and your Tesla. First thing we're gonna do is just check out and verify what they were saying. And again, you can see this is fairly unique for trim damage. Typically you're seeing things like cracking, drying, fading, peeling when you get oxidation on trim. But there's definitely like that bluish, oily looking kind of rainbow effect on the trim. So we're gonna use the recommendation that they were asking about, and the friends of the channel were saying, hey, we're just gonna spray this with WD-40. So we're gonna check it out and see if it helps. So just for comparisons, we're just gonna use this, we're gonna go to this bottom section just to see how she does. So you can tell upon first look, that looks much better. Super easy, and there's a good reason why. There's obviously some solvents there that's gonna clean things up. It's a penetrant, it's a multi-purpose lubricant, things like that. So there's gonna be some residues and some oils there. I'm sure that WD-40 wants to keep secret. But that's gonna fill in some of those voids and hide some of the look. So credit where credit's due. The WD-40 does go on easily. It does make it look treated for a while, but you can see after just one quick hit of all-purpose cleaner ready to use, any protection there is pretty much gone. It did remove some of the staining, but if you get in there and look close, you can still see some of the discolorations and the splotchiness. Obviously, this trim is then exposed again, and that's where we get to the root cause of what's actually going on with this trim and why it looks weird here. So we're sniffing around this car and figuring out, why would this be happening? It turns out that Tesla trim is actually aluminum. Now, it still sounds plastic, but we think it's because there's some rubber gaskets behind there. But the fact that this is all aluminum makes a lot more sense when we're seeing this kind of rainbowing, bluing effect. And that's because aluminum is actually very beneficial in being it's a lightweight structural metal. So cars are using it to lightweight, and if you're thinking about an electric car for range extension, you want light components to go farther. However, as a metal compared to something like steel or painted surfaces or glass even, aluminum has a very narrow range of where you want pH extremes. This also makes sense why when you start looking at all these videos, people saying, I only have the problem when I go through automatic car washes or touchless car washes. Touchless car washes need to use more extreme chemicals because there's no friction and pressure to clean it. There's no brushes. It's just the chemicals working on it. So what's going to happen is they have to use a little bit heavier duty chemicals, so a little bit more acid, a little bit more base. And really aluminum, for keeping it pristine, you want between pH of 4 and a pH of 9, which is fairly neutral. Anything you're using for quick cleaning without kind of contact, you are going to be in the 3, 2, 1 range on the acid side, and you're going to be in the 10, 11, 12, even higher maybe on the basic side. So once you get those things touching that aluminum, what's going to happen is you're basically anodizing that aluminum, which is putting that oxidation layer on there uneven, and sometimes it can be bluey and rainbowy. But rather than looking cool like an exhaust tip that looks intentional, it's going to be splotchy like the chemicals that are left on your aluminum, and it's going to look cooked. It's going to look bad. It's going to look nasty. So what we want to do permanently is seal that. Now, permanent solution is like, okay, don't take it through an automatic car wash. You're not going to expose the aluminum to pH. Maybe that's not always practical for you. So you're going to want to seal it with a ceramic or as close to a ceramic as you're comfortable doing. It's just as easy to apply as WD-40, and it's going to actually protect and seal that aluminum for a long period of time. Ceramics, we're talking years. Hybrids, we're talking months at a time. So let's show you what those results do, and then we'll do a long-term durability test to show you really how beneficial it is to seal that aluminum compared to just covering it up with a household lubricant. So some might suggest that we go after this with maybe a little bit of a polish to get rid of some of that, again, oxidation or discoloration, which is a viable option. It will remove it for sure. However, this is kind of a nice satin matte black trim. If you do that, you are very much risking turning that into a very high gloss, shiny black. So if you like the look of this, we would recommend against doing that. And just so to get the point across on sealing this and the durability, using the right tool for the right job, we are going to use the WD-40 again, and we're going to spray it and leave it on there so you can see what it looks like on this bottom sill. And then we're going to use our trim ceramic product on this top side. Let those things let the ceramic cure, and we're going to run this through a few touchless car washes to show you that this is going to run off. It's not going to do any protection versus ceramic, which is going to actually bond and seal and make a permanent coating to that trim, sealing that aluminum to prevent further damage. And then as a go-between, we're going to use our Trim Shine product and our Trim Shine Hybrid on the other side of the car just to show you guys all the differences. So we're going to show you how those apply right now. So quick update on our trim and how it looks. It's been about a week. Actually, it's been exactly a week, and we've run it through a touchless car wash 2 times just to get an update on how everything looks. And a little bit just clarification on everything. You can see on almost all the pieces, now that we've had some time, that the water spot kind of effect, that look, full transparency is on all of the areas. So the coatings are not permanent fixes. However, you can see pretty quickly that there's actually a nice delineation line here. The WD-40 is not It's not a trim coating. Again, we talked about this last time. It's a good product. It's a penetrant. So that is pretty much already gone, and this area looks the worst for the wear. So there's really nothing there protecting that anymore. It's already gone after 2 washes. The other trim products, so this is the ceramic, still looks quite good. The kind of bluing discoloration rainbow effect is gone. However, you can still see the imperfections that are now down in that aluminum. We can walk across the other side as well. Again, this is the Trim Shine and the Trim Shine Hybrid. Again, both are holding up fairly well. No discoloration, no rainbowing, but you still see the kind of splotchiness imperfection there. So a couple learning points here. If you'd like to coat it to make it appear a little bit better, use a dedicated trim product. That's going to make the best solution for that. If you have a new car that has this kind of trim, if you have a new Tesla, we would suggest coating that right away, because although you can avoid, touchless car washes and do this all by hand, you still want to seal that, because that's going to be very susceptible to extremes like we talked about last week in the pH scale. So just seal that, because if you seal it right away, that is going to be protected and you won't have that effect. Another option is polishing, because one of the things that frustrate people with matte finishes is they are very hard to manage, because this kind of thing happens and they're hard to remove. Again, remember, if you polish it though, this will become more of a shiny black, reflective black, but much easier to maintain, much easier to clean. So, long story short, this is a problem that affects these cars specifically because of that trim being made of aluminum, and that discoloration is probably some kind of like secondary anodization process that's happening, because if you go through a touchless car wash, they're going to use a little bit stronger chemicals to, again, get that film off of your car, because they're not using the brushes and the touch. So if that dries on your car, if that's your primary method of cleaning, over that cycle time, you're going to see that discoloration come through that black finish. So again, we recommend seal that right away, keep it protected with a trim-specific product, and you will be set. So that's all for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.